Welcome to the Expansion Project. I am your host, Fat Tony. On this show, I have casual yet deep conversations with professional athletes, entrepreneurs, coaches, investors, and other successful people in hopes of expanding my mind and yours while motivating and inspiring people along the way. We'll get into BMX, CrossFit, traveling, lifestyle design, business, investing, real estate, and a whole lot more. This week, I chatted with my good friend, training partner, and CrossFit coach, Gabriel Grobben. If you've ever seen me use the hashtag BroVenture on Instagram, I'm probably referring to something I've done with Gabe, be it surfing, snorkeling, hiking, or really anything that involves exploring Southern California. Gabe and I discussed the journey of how he went from a young athlete to a CrossFit coach as an adult. I was really excited to have this conversation, and I'm very happy to introduce you guys to such a positive person in my life. So let's jump right into it. I want to start off with a little bit of your background. I know I've probably asked you these types of questions a million times as we've been hanging out, but give me a quick rundown on where you grew up and kind of your family structure. Like I know you've got some brothers and stuff. Kind of give me that pecking order and give me a little background info on you.
Well, I grew up in Gardnerville, Nevada, which is a small ranching town just south of Carson City, the capital. I got two older brothers. They're half-brothers, and so I pretty much grew up as an only child. They were out of the house by the time I was 10 years old. So I had a mom and dad still married, still together to this day. And so I grew up in I guess I would call it a pretty balanced family atmosphere, family structure.
Yeah, so how did that play in the fact that your brothers were gone by the time you were 10? How did that kind of only child dynamic play into your life, do you think?
Well, I mean, I guess I didn't have to share anything in the in the household, so I was well taken care of, by my folks. I didn't have anything to worry about, and I definitely didn't want for anything. But at the same time, they made me work for stuff, so
yeah,
it wasn't a free ride all the way.
Gotcha. So a lot of what we're going to end up talking about later on is kind of sports and fitness and CrossFit specifically. But I know you did play sports as a kid as well. We've talked before about baseball and tennis. Any other sports that you played, or give me a little rundown on how the sports went? And actually, while we're on that topic, did your older brothers kind of contribute to the sports aspect of your life at all?
Not really, not at all. No, like I said, they had gone off to college by the time I was 10, and so being as that they weren't really athletes themselves, they didn't really contribute too much to me playing sports. I never had any sort of older brother influence or trying to, step out of their shadow if they were some big sports star. That really wasn't a dynamic for me at all.
Gotcha. So what was the background on your sports? What did you get into first? What did you start to play throughout childhood and getting up into high school and stuff?
So my grandmother was from the Philippines, and she was a big-time tennis player. Actually, my great-uncle, her brother, was a Philippine champion, and he played in the senior U.S. Open. He got to the finals, actually, at one point with his doubles partner. So long story short, big tennis family coming from the Philippines, and so by the time I was old enough to stand and grasp something in my hand, she took care of me a lot, and so she stuck little toy tennis rackets in my hands and had me bat the ball around a little bit. So my first sport started off right off the bat with tennis, and I was a tennis player starting on the court with actual real equipment and a coach by age 4. Started playing t-ball around age 5, I guess, and so I grew up playing two sports, tennis and baseball, and got pretty competitive in both. Played, local rec leagues for baseball, but I advanced a lot quicker in tennis because that was my focus. So I had a private coach and played a lot of tennis tournaments over in Northern California. That was the most competitive region for me to compete in. So from age 8 on up to 16, I was playing in the open singles divisions over there.
Nice. So you said you're kind of competitive, and you mentioned your focus on tennis. Did that come solely from within, or were your parents, pushing sports at all? Where did that come from?
My parents have always been really super supportive of my athletic endeavors, especially when I was younger. But they, as far as pushing me, I guess I have it in my mind where you have those really overbearing parents,
right?
That really push their kids to, even if the kids don't want to play, they make them do it in practice. That was never really the case for me. I had really supportive parents, and obviously they encouraged me to do my best and to practice and to put my time in to be the best that I could be. But no, I mean I guess to answer your question, they were a driving force, but they didn't make me do it.
Right, right. So what was that force within you that kind of gave you that competitive nature? Can you pinpoint where that came from? Do you think it was just kind of how you were wired?
Yeah, honestly, being as I'm a pretty short guy, I'm 5'6", and so I've always been small. I guess I've always felt that I've been an underdog in pretty much everything, from being on the schoolyard with other kids, competing with them, and touch football to more organized sports, and just any other aspect of life. I've always kind of felt like an underdog. So a lot of my drive and a lot of my competitiveness comes from, I think stems from just wanting to prove myself and establish my place as being significant.
Yeah. And with tennis, I know we've discussed before that you actually went to live at a facility full time to focus on tennis, right?
I did. So at age 14, I had pretty much established myself as one of the top 20 players in Northern California. USTA sanctioned play, which is the United States Tennis Association, and they have bracket systems: 10 and under, 12 and under, 14, 16, and 18, and then you can either make the transition into ITF, which is the International Tennis Federation, or you can start playing professionally on the pro tour. So I was getting to a point to where I could potentially start looking at turning pro at some point. And to take the next step, I needed to. I'd kind of outgrown my small town and the coaching that I was able to get in that small town, even though I did have an amazing coach. So the decision came to to send me to a tennis academy, and there was two main tennis academies in the United States at that time, and that was the Bolletary Tennis Academy that Andre Agassi and a lot of other big-time tennis players, big-time pros in the United States, they came out of that academy, and that's in Florida. And then the one on the West Coast was the Wild Tennis Academy, and there's been some pretty big tennis players that have come out of Wild as well. And so being that it was on the West Coast, it was closer to home, and a little bit less expensive, my folks decided to send me to the Wild Tennis Academy, which is located a little bit north of here up in Ojai, the Ojai Valley. And so that's where I spent my sophomore year of high school. Do
you think being away from home during that kind of young, impressionable time of your life helped you mature quicker than other people that might go to a regular high school, or do you think that kind of aided to your personal growth at all?
Yeah, I definitely think that it aided to some aspects of growth. It definitely taught me to be self-reliant. Because being away from home, there's a lot of people that have started out away from home at a younger age than that. But I definitely had to get used to not having the comforts of having mom and dad around whenever I needed them, or whenever I wanted to go somewhere or do something. I was pretty much confined to that facility, and my life was training and school, and so it basically I had to get serious about my athletic career a lot faster. I was on a fast track, if you will. So,
I don't know a hell of a lot about tennis players, but when I think of them in my mind, I don't necessarily think of the most wild and crazy bunch. But at the same time, I have to imagine that if there's a bunch of sophomore guys like all living together, some crazy things have to go down, right? Do you have any stories you can share from that?
Yeah. Yeah, it was actually it was pretty crazy. It wasn't just sophomores; it was a pretty big range of ages. So we had players from all over the world. A lot of Russian players, young tennis prodigies from over there. We had a lot of Japanese players as well as really good kids from all around the United States, ranging from age 12 on up to actually into their early 20s. So most of the students at the academy lived in the dormitories, And so when you have, young teenagers on up to 20-year-olds living in the same place, there's shenanigans going on all the time, and there's a pecking order. So as far as stories go, oh gosh, okay. One kid that we had, his name was Eric, and I'll never forget this kid. He's from the South, and he was a great tennis player, but he was a sleepwalker. I don't know if you've ever experienced anybody that was a legitimate sleepwalker.
I don't believe I have, actually.
But this kid, he would wake up in the middle of the night and he would knock on people's doors and he'd be dead asleep. And he'd go into their room and fumble around with their stuff. And at first people would just think that he's screwing with them, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But you couldn't wake him up. You'd shake him and he'd grumble at you and push you away. And he'd go, you'd get him to leave and he'd go down to the next person's room and do the same thing. And anyway, so we used to mess with him pretty bad. He would react to certain things in the environment. And one thing we found out was that he was really scared of the guitar when he was sleepwalking. And so we got our buddy Jenner's guitar, and we would play really low notes, kind of like sinister sounding notes you'd hear in a horror movie. He'd freak out and go and hide under somebody's bed, and you'd have to.
While he was asleep still.
He was asleep. He was dead asleep, and we got we'd gotten the dorm parent, we'd gotten our coaches up, and hey, check out this, what's going on with this kid, and they tried to wake him up, and he wouldn't wake up. We'd finally get him back into his room, and he'd go to sleep, and he'd wake up the next morning, have no recollection of anything.
Wow.
And this happened on multiple occasions, so.
It's a shame that there wasn't the iPhones and GoPros back then, because you guys could have had some YouTube gold with that stuff.
We would have had viral videos for days.
So we're going to kick on over to our first segment here. This is a segment we call Chime In, where I post a question on Instagram and readers chime in with their response.
Sweet.
So I will read off a couple people's answers, and then you can think of your answer at the same time. So our question for today for Chime In is, what is something you did once but never want to do again? Dr. Megan Hirsch from Movement RX, shout out to Movement RX here in SoCal. They do amazing things with CrossFit athletes as far as rehabilitation and stuff. Dr. Megan says Fran, which I can completely understand where that answer is coming from. For anybody listening to this, you probably already know what Fran is and you're familiar with CrossFit, but for those who don't, Fran is a CrossFit workout where you do 21 thrusters at 95 pounds, 21 pull-ups, then 15 thrusters, 15 pull-ups, 9 thrusters, and 9 pull-ups. And it is a brutal, brutal workout, and just makes you feel absolutely miserable. So, yeah, I agree there, Megan. I probably don't want to ever do Fran again either, but you have to, kind of. Waffles underscore BMX says acid. Yeah, I can't relate to that one necessarily, but thanks for chiming in, Waffles. Brian Fox BMX, a really talented rider out of South Florida, says a fat chick. Once again, I cannot relate, but I appreciate the answer. All right, here's one, Gabe, that you might be able to resonate with. This person is at, I'm going to butcher this, Malayan. Why can I not read this? Malaya? Y-N. Malayan. All right, at Malayan33 says a mile of burpees.
Woof.
I don't know if that means like broad jump burpees. I can't imagine how you'd go a mile if you're standing still. But, yeah, a mile and burpees in the same sentence to me sounds pretty miserable.
Yeah, that just seems like those two things don't go together.
All right, let's see what else we got. SQB Gal says parasailing. She was so bored. Yeah, I've never done parasailing, but I've done paragliding. That was cool. I can understand how parasailing would be kind of boring. Have you done that before?
Yeah, I actually have a little bit of experience parasailing up in Tahoe, close to where I grew up, and I'm going to have to disagree with what was the name?
SQB Gal?
SQB Gal. I'm going to have to disagree with SQB Gal. Well, being as that I was in Tahoe, it's pretty nice views, and so sunset. You can't complain with sunset on Tahoe.
We actually have another one from at the Chris Story that says acid. So a couple people were not pretty stoked on acid. Tiffany Garcia says the only thing I can think of right now is drinking and smoking. I guess I can relate to that as well. She also put the hashtag sober life. Yeah, I've actually never drank or smoked in my life, so good answer there. _fitness chef _ that's Chef Katie Lively from Chef Kate's Nut Butter. Shout out to her. She says long distance running. Gabe, I know you got some experience with a little long run recently. You did a half marathon.
Sure did. Yeah. No, the girlfriend got me to do a New Year's Eve marathon, or half marathon, and that was miserable.
Vivid Photography by Wayne says he will never buy a crop sensor camera again. I agree with that. Full frame all the way, brother. Let's see what else. Last one we're going to read off is J. Burke, 1856, says, skydiving. Went non-tandem on my first jump. Hashtag never need to do it again. Hashtag. Yeah, I went skydiving once and did go tandem, and there's a good chance I'll never do that again either, actually. So, Gabe, do you have an answer that you can chime in with?
Oh, gosh. Well, it sounds like a lot of these are fitness-related, so go ahead and keep along with the theme of that. I've never been much of a distance of anything athlete, so I ran cross-country once in high school, and I swore to myself I would never do that again. But a mile swim, I've done that once, and I had to test out at a class, and I will never swim a mile again.
I have never swam a mile either, and don't really envy that. But swimming is one of those things that's on my radar of eventually I'm going to learn a little bit of swimming technique, I think, just to up my fitness game and be a little more well-rounded. Anyway, that's it for Chime In this week. Thanks for everybody for chiming in, and if you want to chime in next time, follow me on Instagram at FatTonyBMX and be on the lookout for those questions. So, Gabe, we're going to jump over into kind of what we've been on the topic of leaning towards is fitness. Obviously, you've been a CrossFitter for a long time, and now you're a coach, so we're going to get into all that. But first, how did you find CrossFit? What's your background there?
So, segue from my tennis career into CrossFit, I did end up with an injury when I was 16, so that took me out of the Wild Tennis Academy. I went back home, finished up playing tennis for my local high school, which was fun. It wasn't this high-pressure situation, but I'd kind of lost my fire for it. I didn't have as much of a passion for the sport anymore, so as far as my athletics goes, things kind of died down a little bit. And when it came time to go to college, it was, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, what direction I was taking with my life. And athletics was, seeming further and further in the past. And so I decided, just to apply to one school. And I got in our local university, the University of Nevada, which is a great school. But I got in, and first couple years, of my undergrad, I didn't do much of anything other than party with friends and, live the stereotypical college life, which was great. No regrets there. But come junior year, I found myself in a situation where I was taking a full-time class load, and it was required for me to take a full-time class load at all times because I had what was called the Millennium Scholarship riding on that. And as long as I was full-time and above a certain GPA, I got to keep that scholarship, which was pretty big for me because I needed the financial aid. I also had other things like insurance and stuff riding on my full-time student status. So I got between, I believe it was my second semester or junior year, and right in the middle of the semester, I found myself failing a class. And so I decided to drop that class so it wouldn't affect my GPA, and found myself with 11 credits remaining on my transcript, which is 1 credit shy of a full-time student status. Mm-hmm. So that brings me full circle to how I found CrossFit. I had to find a class, and I had to find one quick.
Yeah.
So to make sure that I kept my full-time student, and so I had to go and I had to go and petition the department that the health sciences department to let me into a class halfway through the semester, because that was against policy at the university. And they said I could go around and ask, and but good luck. And so the only person, long story short, the only person that would let me in was a general physical fitness instructor who taught like a PEX, a physical education course. Mm-hmm. And it just so happened that instructor was none other than Drew Canavero of the San Francisco Fire Grid League team. Oh,
this puts some of the pieces of the puzzle together for me. I knew you guys were friends. I didn't realize that he was the PE teacher here.
Yeah, well,
okay.
He was an undergrad. He was a fellow undergrad as well, but they had hired him on to teach what was essentially a CrossFit class. And so we were one of the first university affiliates in the country. At this time, I didn't know anything about CrossFit. I asked him if I could join his class. He hemmed and hawed over it. He was like, let me get back to you. So I kept bugging him, and finally he goes, you know what, I'll let you in under one condition, and that is you don't miss a single day of class for the rest of the semester, and you do double days every day of class until you get caught up. So I'm thinking to myself, no problem, it's not going to be a big deal. Well, I didn't know anything about CrossFit. And so he warned me, he gave me the good warning and let me know that it was going to be tough and probably the hardest thing I'd ever done physically and athletically. And I kind of brushed that off. And after my first session of CrossFit, my tune changed a little bit.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so that's where I initially found CrossFit, was 2008, junior year of college.
Wow. Do you remember your first WOD?
Yes, I do.
Let's hear it.
My very first workout, and it's funny you mentioned that. The Dr. Megan Hirsch says she'll never do Fran again. Fran was my first CrossFit workout.
Oh, dear God.
And so that's how I was introduced to it. Not only was Fran my first, but guess what? I had to do 2-a-days, so I did it twice that day.
Oh, my gosh. Do you have any idea what your time was or what kind of weight you did back then or anything?
I think my very first one was done with 65 pounds, and I struggled with that. Considered myself to be pretty strong. I was kind of a gym rat at that time in college, and so I thought I was strong. But, man, 65 pounds, I got my butt handed to me. And the pull-ups were just garbage, too. So
Were you able to do all the pull-ups unassisted?
I started off doing Fran with jumping pull-ups. Drew actually made me do jumping pull-ups the first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty smart. So you said you were a gym rat before that. What kind of things were you doing before you got into this CrossFit class?
Oh, I did the stereotypical guy thing. I didn't know much about fitness. I knew how to train for my sport, but as far as getting in the gym and lifting weights, that was a fairly foreign environment to me. So I took what little bit of knowledge I had from high school weightlifting and went into the gym and followed a bodybuilding program. And that's pretty much all I did, separated my workouts, arms and back, legs and abs.
Right.
Like
So no real programming or anything, no coaching, just kind of going on your own? I
mean, it was a program, but how good or effective the program was and for what purpose, who knows, and definitely didn't have any coaching at the time.
Gotcha. So I know at some point or another you'd posted on Instagram a kind of Transformation Tuesday post, and you looked, if I may say so, a little bit fat. What kind of got you from point A to point B? Obviously, there's a lot of things in between, but maybe I guess what I'm asking is, what kicked off that fitness journey of yours? What made you decide I need to change? Or was it the CrossFit that came first, and you just kind of went from there?
Well, I'll try to make it as concise as possible. There came a point in my undergrad years where I was partying pretty hard, drank heavily, late nights. I smoked, I chewed, was messing around with drugs here and there. And at one point, I just kind of started waking up and realizing the day after those crazy nights that I just didn't feel good about it anymore. I didn't feel fulfilled. It wasn't as fun, and I started getting pretty down on myself and getting to a little bit of a dark place. So I knew that something had to change, and right around that time, I got into CrossFit, and I'd gotten out of a pretty dysfunctional relationship not too long before that either. So that was still weighing on my mind. And so it kind of gave me a release. CrossFit gave me a release, and it reminded me a little bit of the athlete that I had once been. So I latched onto that. That was something that was important to me, and it kind of brought me back to my glory days, if you will. And so I took it and ran with it, and I just, I got better, and I saw improvement, and I saw a little bit of change in my body that got me excited. My athletic performance was returning to me. I was more optimistic about life in general, and just everything started to become a little bit more positive. So I took it and ran with it.
Nice. From what you're saying, I'm kind of getting that there was never necessarily a time when you looked in the mirror and decided, I need to make a change based on my appearance. Was that not the case, really?
There's a little bit of that. I had always been conscious of my body growing up. I was never one to have a six-pack. Guys want the six-pack.
Of course.
That's a big deal. So that was always something that was kind of a chip on my shoulder. I wanted that chiseled physique, and I also wanted to be competitive in sports. I wanted to play intramurals in college. But as far as that goes, looking in the mirror, to be real honest, I've always kind of had a little bit of a complex about, wanting to better myself and just to be the best I can be. And when I looked in the mirror at that point in time, when I was feeling down on myself, I just didn't see what I wanted to see. So,
now, was that that physique that I have in mind? Maybe I'll post it in the show notes or something on the website. But I remember a picture of you fishing or something, and I think you were even wearing a fanny pack. That's besides the point. But like I said, you were pretty big in this picture. Was that physique at that time? Was that directly related to the partying and drinking and that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was a direct result of lifestyle. I gained quite a bit of fat weight, at least for my frame at the time. I was getting a little bit pudgy around the midsection, and so it's definitely a result of late nights, a lot of alcohol, a lot of junk food, trips to Jack in the Box.
Got it. So you were talking about CrossFit became your release, and you just really kind of took it and ran with it. At what point did you start thinking about wanting to coach CrossFit and sort of take your fitness to the next level?
Well, to be honest with you, the reason I went to college in the first place was to stay involved with athletics. Since I knew that my tennis career was pretty much winding down, and if not completely ended by that point, I knew I wanted to stay around athletes because I loved being on the baseball diamond. I loved being on the tennis court when things were going well. So I knew I wanted to stick around athletes because that's all I'd ever known. And so originally I was thinking about potentially going to the University of the Pacific in Stockton for sports psychology. I had a sports psychologist talk with me at a Nike tennis camp one time in Stanford, and that really made an impression on me. So I thought that was a cool field and potentially wanted to pursue that. But they didn't have sports psychology at the University of Nevada, so I got into health ecology, public health, the public health program department. And that was the closest I could get and still stay involved with health and fitness. And so anyway, what was it?
Was there anything ironic about that at the time, that you were kind of partying and having this typical college lifestyle, that you were going to school for health, but you sort of let your health slip? Was that ever a thought?
That was never really a thought to me. I guess it just kind of went along with feeling young and vulnerable. And like I said, it was kind of a default field for me to go into. I wasn't super in touch with health and fitness per se. I just wanted to stay involved with sports.
Gotcha.
And so that was the reason I ended up in that field.
Okay, so transitioning over to coaching and or personal training, because I know you've done both here. When did that come about?
So wanting to become a coach. Addressing that question. I knew I wanted to become a coach when, at the point of, I had been about 2 years into CrossFit. So
hold on, let me back up just a tiny bit. So the first experience with CrossFit was from that class. What happened when the semester ended? Did you just join a different box, or did you continue to do it with the school?
Oh, okay. So that was a class that was offered every semester at the university.
Okay.
So after that semester ended, I just continued on, and what was cool about the University of Nevada was if you bought your student gym membership, which is like $70 or something a semester, then you got free access to all the fitness classes. And they had CrossFit classes for credit, and they had CrossFit classes for just anyone to go to, for students to go to if they paid for a gym membership. So I just continued on right there in the program, going to the classes. Under the same coaching.
And Drew was coaching the whole time?
Drew was coaching, and we had a couple other coaches as well. We had one of our other coaches, Johnny, and then one or two others. Okay,
cool. Yeah. All right, so you continued on doing CrossFit, and then lead us into the coaching now.
So, I'm 2 years deep into CrossFit now, from 2008 to 2010. My first experience watching people who were amazing at the sport outside of the university, and, thinking Drew was the best CrossFitter in the world. I watched the live broadcast of the 2010 CrossFit Games, the first time it was held at what was then the Home Depot Center.
Yep.
And I remember watching these athletes on the computer, huddled around the computer with a bunch of friends from our class that were also fellow CrossFitters at the University of Nevada. And one athlete I honed in on was this guy, this short white guy who was just crushing it in the first event. And that was Chris Spieler.
Yeah.
And I thought, Chris Spieler, wow, that guy is amazing. I mean, he's defying the odds. Look at all these huge athletes, and he's the David among Goliaths out there. So I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. And I thought that if he could do it, and if he could, rise to that level, why couldn't I? Or at least, be able to coach and bring other people to that level. So it came full circle, sticking around athletics. I was like, you know what better than to stick around sports than to be able to coach?
Yeah.
And if I can't be an athlete anymore, I want to coach it. So that got me interested in wanting to get my CrossFit certifications.
And what was the process like to get those certifications? And wasn't, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't your certification done with Spieler?
So my level 1 was not done with Spieler. My level 1 was done with Pat Barber and Adrian Bosman.
Bosman, yeah.
Yep.
Who's now one of the head judges.
Yeah, he's one of the head guys.
Yep.
And Miranda Oldroyd was there, amongst others. So there was a pretty all-star lineup for my level 1.
And what did you have to do to get your level 1 CrossFit certification to be able to become a coach?
So our level 1 consisted of a weekend seminar.
Okay.
Where you had to study materials beforehand. There was a study booklet for movement standards, movement performance, and so you had to be pretty familiar with how to do these things in order to perform them during the seminar.
Yeah.
So you go to the seminar. There's 8 hours of lecture, the first and second day, and then you have live practice with 5-on-1 with the coaches or whatever the groups were. So you had to be able to demonstrate your ability to not only perform these movements but to help cue and coach them to other athletes. And then they put you through workout at the end as well. And then there's a written portion. There's I believe at the time it was a 50-question written exam, and I think you could only miss 3 questions in order to pass and to receive your level 1.
And am I just making up the Chris Spieler thing, or was he part of level 2 certification? Or
he was.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not pulling that out of thin air. So what was that like, getting kind of teaching or coaching from him, being that he was kind of the guy that you looked up to at the time?
Well, I mean, to be real honest with you, I mean, I've always, since 2010, watched him at the games. I've always really idolized Chris Spieler. Everything about him, he's a super humble guy, super knowledgeable, driven. Everything about him just exudes, amazing, great athlete and coach. So I wanted to do my level 2. If I was going to do it, I wanted to do it with him. So I scheduled my level 2 certification. I could have done it closer to home, but I decided to go to Park City, Utah, and get my level 2 there.
Very cool. What was those experiences like, getting the certification? Was it just kind of like, I'm just going to go for the weekend, or was it kind of a big, powerful, and an important thing in your life, or was it just kind of just another step to get to where you needed to go?
I guess it's kind of a mixture of both. I mean, I wouldn't say that I took it casually by any means, but it was definitely a necessary step to improve my coaching. Because you can only grow so much with the knowledge that you have. Coaching multiple athletes, things get stale. Coaching techniques get stale.
Yep.
And unless you're constantly interacting with other coaches, getting new ideas, learning new techniques all the time, then you kind of seem to get a little bit stagnant. And I was kind of getting a little bit stagnant with where I was. And I just needed to take the next step, and what better to take it than to go get my level 2. So to answer your question, I felt like I needed to.
Yep.
I felt like it was a growing point for me. And I was stoked to do it with Chris Spieler.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So once you had the certifications, either the 1 or the level 2, what did your first sort of 6 months or first year or even first 2 years, whatever, what did the beginning of you coaching look like?
So I started off doing personal training. I had a job senior year of college all the way through all the way through leaving Reno to move down to Southern California. So that was a 3-year period from 2010 to 2013. And so I worked at a country club in Northwest Reno. It was a master plan community, and I worked a couple different positions there. I was a concierge as well as a group fitness instructor. So my first experience as a coach wasn't at a CrossFit box or a CrossFit gym. However, I did use CrossFit or functional fitness background training to coach my classes and my personal training. As that started to grow, I started to get more and more clients.
Yep.
So that was my first experience as a coach.
Cool. So you were still doing CrossFit classes on your own, like participating in them, working out, training CrossFit yourself, and then you were coaching and doing personal training at a bigger Globo gym, as we call them.
Correct.
And then at a certain point, I know you went to a backyard gym style thing. Let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah. So 2012, I was living with a good friend from college, Zach Pringle.
And this is during the time when you were still working at the Globo gym, doing the group classes and stuff?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was still teaching classes, on payroll for the country club.
Yep.
I didn't have the equipment that I needed to teach. I mean, I had a passion for CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
CrossFit was what I wanted to do, and CrossFit required, at least, with my experience, kettlebells and barbells and bumper weights and pull-up rigs and all the fun stuff, the weight sleds, and we didn't have hardly any of that stuff at the country club. So I took some of my savings along with partnered up with my roommate at the time, Zach Pringle, and my other roommate, his now wife, Brittany Pringle, and we bought a bunch of Rogue fitness equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And we cleared out our 2-car garage that we were of our rental house, and we set up our own garage box.
Yeah.
So we had a place for us to train. We no longer had to pay a gym membership to go to another box. We just trained out of our house, and friends would come over and want to work out with us. They were curious about what we were doing. So hey, let's try this CrossFit thing. And so friends started to come over and work out with us, and so that was another opportunity for me to expand and grow my coaching. And Zach started to get his feet wet a little bit and coach a little bit, and it kind of grew into a club. And friends of friends started coming, and before you know it, we'd have 10, 15 people over there a night working out of our garage.
Wow. So was that, obviously it was a thing of passion, and it was something that stemmed from you just wanting to do your thing. Was there ever kind of a business model behind that, or did you try to implement a business model onto that as far as charging people to come work out with you guys or charging for the programs or anything like that?
Zach and I talked about that a little bit, and it basically came down to, it was more, like you said, it was like a labor of love.
Yeah.
And how we viewed it, or at least how I can speak for myself, how I viewed it is I was getting in my training. I was able to practice my coaching.
Yep.
And at the same time, we were providing an opportunity for friends to, come over and improve their well-being, both mentally and physically. And that played into what I studied in college, public health. So I was really pretty satisfied with just having a hangout club type atmosphere. Yeah. So I wasn't too worried about a business model at that point. But if I were to really put my finger on it, we did let people know that if they wanted to donate any amount of money a month, they were welcome to, and we would put all the donations right back into the gym to buy more equipment to make it that much more awesome for them to come work out.
Very cool. So with coaching, there comes a big sense of satisfaction. You're helping people improve themselves, get healthier, get stronger. In these early days of the garage gym, when you're kind of donating your time and services and just getting into it, do you remember a specific time when you really felt that touching moment of really helping somebody or seeing somebody succeed because of something you taught them? Any kind of those stories you have?
Yeah, absolutely. Every single person that came to visit us was, more or less a touching story.
Mm-hmm.
Because each person that came to our gym was reaching out, in some way or another, because they either thought what we were doing was cool, or they thought maybe it was a chance for them to improve themselves in some way. So anytime you can help somebody out is kind of a blessing. But One person in particular, we had a friend in college. She was one of our party friends, and she was kind of a tomboy, and great friend though. And she had a younger brother, and she had been working out with us for a few months, and she's like, you know what, I'm going to try to get my younger brother in here. And her younger brother was quite a bit overweight and pretty low self-esteem, and a number of other things that were not necessarily positive. But she was able to bring him in, and we all met, and made him feel welcome, and got him to kind of sit around the gym the first time and kind of watch what we were all about, what we were doing, how we were coached, what the different movements were, and you could see him. It piqued his interest a little bit. Something he had never been involved with before was, health, fitness, working out, sports. That just was not his gig.
Right.
But we finally, slowly but surely, got him involved with the workouts and was able to coach him a little bit. And you could see the gears start turning. In his mind. And the first time I saw him crack a smile when he was able to perform a deadlift correctly or squat correctly. That was the moment I was like, you know what, I'm affecting somebody's life right now. I truly made a difference, because he walked away more upbeat than he came in. And then said that from that point on, I knew that I definitely want to pursue this coaching thing. And at one point, at some point one day, I would like to have my own official gym facility. So.
It seems to me that that type of feeling of knowing that you've affected somebody, seeing those smiles, seeing those PRs, seeing, those, victories is something that would really just keep you wanting to coach and wanting to do it more, right?
Absolutely. It's a constant reminder. As a coach and, as an athlete in general, you have your good days and your bad days. You get tired. You get a little bit worn out. You get worn thin. But it just takes those small reminders from people that you're involved with, and letting you know in one way or another that you're improving their life or helping them to improve their lives. That just it erases all the negative stuff and keeps you right on track to push forward and stay the course, because that's what you originally set out to do. And sometimes we can lose focus of that, but they remind you of it pretty quick.
So let's talk about getting from end of college, where you were in Reno, Nevada, to down here in Southern California. Tell me about that transition.
Okay. So I had been coaching, like I said, for 3 years at that point, 2010 to 2013 at the country club. It's called Somerset. And I was making a comfortable living. My savings account was growing. I was able to live a pretty good lifestyle, in my opinion. I had time for all my recreational activities. Had a great core group of friends around me. Really nothing to complain about. But at the same time, I felt like I wasn't reaching my potential. I felt like there was something. I was meant for more than what I was doing. And I wasn't content with where I was at. My older brother, Jeff, he had gotten his master's degree from the University of Southern California. He was a Trojan. And I always looked up to him for his academic achievements. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to really do this thing, then I need to take it to the next step. I need to get my master's degree, So I got a hair up my butt one day, and while I was at work and doing had some downtime at the desk, I hopped online and started researching grad programs, and found out that I would probably, for what I wanted to do, be best suited in a kinesiology program.
Okay.
And so started looking around and found some schools in Texas, Southern California, Washington, and kind of narrowed it down to a few that I wanted to apply to, and said, all right, if this is really what I want to do, then I'm going to have to gather all my information and send out my application. So that's what I did. I applied to a few schools down here in Southern California, San Diego State, Long Beach State, and San Jose State up north. Got into 2 out of 3, and the one that I ended up settling on was Cal State Long Beach.
So why a master's program? You mentioned that you weren't using your full potential. You wanted more. You knew you needed more. Why not do more certifications, more seminars, more, in the field kind of training as opposed to a degree? What was it about the degree that you felt was the good fit for you?
That's a really good question. And on one hand, you may have to remind me a little bit of the question, but on one hand, I felt that I was very well suited to coach athletes to a certain point with my certifications through CrossFit. Mm-hmm. I could successfully teach them how to do the 9 foundational movements, the different types of squats, the deadlift, the presses. Mm-hmm. But when it came down to the nitty-gritty of the physiology going on inside the body, the actual, movement kinematics, the actual science behind the workouts, I felt that I knew that my knowledge was lacking, mm-hmm. and I didn't want to piece it together from random sources. I wanted to have a structured education.
Okay.
And so I knew that the only way to do that was to go and get a formal education again, at least in my mind.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So right now, what's going on with your school? Where are you at? What's your master's in exactly?
So my program, I'm in the kinesiology department. My exact program is coaching and student athlete development.
Okay.
And that's what my grad program is. And so I'll have a Master of Arts in that by the time I'm finished. I have one more semester, not including this one that I'm currently in.
Okay.
So I'm finishing up the last of my classes right now, and then I'll be studying. I'll take one more class, and then studying for my comprehensive exams. I'm going the comprehensive exam route as opposed to the thesis route for my culminating project.
So the end game plan for the school, you mentioned earlier that you do want to own your own gym eventually.
Yes.
Are you thinking about business classes at all right now? Do you plan to get out of school and just coach for a little while and save up some money? What's sort of the longer term plan or mid-length term plan right now?
So far, my plan is to finish school. Right now I have the awesome opportunity of learning a lot of the back-end business side of running a CrossFit gym with my current job at CrossFit Long Beach. Mm-hmm. We have some pretty awesome owners, and they're a very successful CrossFit gym. They've stood the test of time. They're one of the originals, one of the first 40, if not 50 gyms in the world. Now there's over 10,000. Mm-hmm. So CrossFit Long Beach is one of the originals, the OGs, if you will.
Yeah.
So Chad and Gina, they do a really good job with what they do over there at CrossFit Long Beach, and I'm happy to be a part of that as a coach. It's also given me a really good opportunity, like I said, to learn the back end of the business, not just be a coach, not just deal with athletes, but learn how to effectively run and manage a gym and promote and grow the gym, so that you are successful and that you do stand the test of time and offer things that other people aren't able to offer or don't know that they can offer. Mm-hmm. So. That partly answers your question, but the buddy of mine that I lived with and that ran the CrossFit box, or not the box, but the club with, Zach Pringle, he has always expressed an interest in opening up a facility with me as well. So he's always been pretty business minded. Mm-hmm. Went to school for political science. I think he minored in business. His wife is an accountant. So we've always talked and played around with different ideas of what we're thinking about doing, 5-10 years down the road. But there's going to come a point here, probably in the next 4 or 5 years, that I'm thinking transitioning from being the coach, the employee, to taking the next step and starting the own box.
Got it. So how did you link up with CrossFit Long Beach? I know you trained there as an athlete and just as a regular gym member long before you started coaching. How did you pick that gym out of all the other ones in the area once you moved down here?
Well, when I started CrossFit, like I said, it was at the University of Nevada, and we started as, even though it was a structured class for credit, it was kind of like a club. We got together. It was the same kids all the time. We had fun. We hung out outside of the gym. It mm-hmm. wasn't just a class where you go to, you do your work, and you take your tests, you get your grade, and you go home. It kind of became a family a little bit, mm-hmm. Your fitness family, if you will.
Right.
And so I was introduced to CrossFit as more of a group dynamic and just a really close-knit group of friends. And so I always carried that mentality and that desire to have that atmosphere when I trained. Because if I didn't have that atmosphere, I didn't feel like I was getting the full benefit and the full potential out of my workouts if I didn't have that that awesome group and core, those core group of people around me. So when I came down here to Southern California, I thought right away, okay, I got to find a CrossFit gym to go to. I got to keep up with my craft. And so I started trying a couple of the local gyms, and they were all right. It seemed nice enough, and facilities are just fine. But when I came across CrossFit Long Beach, I mean, it was just I don't want to seem like I'm tooting our own horn too much right now that I'm an employee, but it was just different. Mm-hmm. I walked in, they were professional. They had a great presentation. The whole philosophy was they were a school of fitness rather than just a gym. They provided you were assigned your own coach, so everybody has a head coach that they go to. Mm-hmm. It's not just if you have an issue or something, maybe somebody will get back to you. You are assigned a specific coach, and they're always there for you if you have any questions, any needs, if you need to put your account on hold, whatever. So that was really cool. I was really impressed with how they ran their facility in general, and their coaches seemed to be pretty knowledgeable. They not only, talk the talk, but they walk the walk. Mm-hmm. And so that and the facility itself is really big. I'd never been to a CrossFit gym aside from the universities that was so large and so complete. And so and the folks, the first couple times I worked out there, everybody was just super inviting. Everybody came up to talk to you, and it just felt like home. I felt like I found a home again.
Yeah.
And I just hadn't found that with the other gyms here. So I decided, you know what, this is the spot I want to work out.
Very cool. I'm going to tell a little story about my first memory of you coming to CrossFit Long Beach. I remember seeing a post on Facebook from a new member, which was you, and we've got our own little CrossFit Long Beach Facebook group. And you basically posted, I think, like, hey, does somebody want to go see a movie tonight? And you posted your phone number or something. And I was like, man, that's really cool. Like, I've been going here a few months, and I've never hung out with anybody outside of the gym, but I would love to kind of, increase my social circle, if you will. So I didn't hit you up about going to the movies necessarily. I hadn't met you yet. But then probably just a few days later, I did see you in the gym, and I was like, oh, hey, I saw you make a post or whatever, like, introduce myself. And we started chatting. And right away, I just got a good vibe from you. And not that I hadn't got a good vibe from other people in the gym, but it was one of those instant things where it's like, oh, like this dude is somebody that I could hang out with outside of the gym. And the fact that you had reached out like that on Facebook, being so new, to me was kind of like, whoa, that's like kind of a bold, confident move, like here he is, a new guy just kind of putting himself out there. And I think that mentality and that vibe you give off has always come across. And I've seen you interact with other people in the gym and just kind of be really personable with people in the gym. And up until I saw that, I feel like I always felt like I was the new guy at the gym, even though I had been there for, 6 months at the time. And even though I had people that I would consider, gym friends that I would chat with in the morning when I went to go work out and stuff, I always felt just a little intimidated to put myself out there. And then when I saw you do it, I was like, man, that made me feel really good and really comfortable, and I need to make sure that I do that to other people as well. So that's something I've really taken from you, and now, when other new people come in, whether they're dropping in or new members, I really make it a point to try to make them feel comfortable and welcomed, and that they can be kind of open and stuff. And I really attribute that to how you made me feel. So thanks for that, man. That was awesome.
Oh, sure. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. That's just one more of those things that makes me want to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, for sure. So we're running out of time. I'm going to switch gears now, and we're going to do a segment that I call Quick Hits. And these are questions that I'm going to ask all my guests, just because I like to hear the answers to these questions, and I like to have a big pool of different perspectives on these types of questions. So you can answer them quickly, or we can go longer and chat about them for more, however you see fitting. The first question I have for you in our Quick Hits segment is, what are one or two things that you personally do to simplify your life or help eliminate clutter from your life?
I will preface this with I am not the most organized person in the world. However, through practice, I become more organized. So my bookshelf is one thing. I have a lot of books, both pleasure reading and scientific reading. So I have my entire bookshelf categorized by theme, and I do the same thing with my movies.
Okay.
Probably one other thing that I've learned to really utilize is my calendar. I've never been much of a planner. I've always been kind of a little bit more spontaneous. However, being, someone in business and being a coach, I have to be more organized. So I utilize my phone. I utilize the heck out of my my calendar app.
So you're just talking about the calendar app as opposed
just the calendar app.
Okay.
I put everything from social events to PT appointments to anything that goes in the calendar.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I actually for some reason I really think in linear form, and I work well that way. So instead of using the actual calendar app on my phone or even on my computer, I just keep a text edit document, a really simple plain text form. And I just go in a list like day by day. And if something pops up 2 months from now, then I'll just put that at the bottom of the list. And as it gets closer, the days, getting closer to that will fill up. But that's actually another thing I do to organize my life as well, just in a slightly different form. Next question, moving on. Have you had any mentors throughout your life? And if so, tell me about that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Aside from my own parents, I'd probably say my biggest mentor was my childhood tennis coach, Bill Welch.
Okay.
He will probably never hear this podcast because he doesn't do anything electronic. But Bill was there for a lot of my kind of defining stages of my youth, from childhood on up through adolescence. Tennis, whenever I'd go to tennis practice, that was kind of an outlet for me. Sometimes I was angry after school or working through some sort of frustration, and not only would he coach me through tennis, but he would kind of coach me through life. Mm-hmm. And he was always someone that I could just throw a bunch of crap out onto, and he would always seem to come back with really solid, uplifting and motivational stuff. And so, I always knew that I could, if I couldn't talk to anybody else about something, I could talk to Bill.
Nice.
And so that was pretty cool.
Very cool. Do you have a favorite quote, or do you have a favorite piece of advice anyone has ever given you?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm gonna have to cite my my CrossFit club. We called it, the box gym that we set up out of the garage was called Journey Fitness. And probably my favorite quote is, "Fitness is a journey, not a destination."
Nice. And what does that mean to you exactly?
What that means to me exactly is that no matter where you're at, in a down spot or in a high place with your health, with your fitness, with your overall outlook in life, just know that that's not the end. Especially when those low points, it's always it's one point in the journey, and you got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and before you know it, you'll be in the next step, and just keep looking forward to that silver lining and those greener pastures.
Tell me about a song that brings you back to a specific time and or place in your life.
All right. Green Day, When I Come Around. That song will always bring me back to grade school. Like I mentioned, I would always be able to talk to my tennis coach about frustrations and things I was going through as a kid. I was kind of an angry kid. I had a little bit of a behavioral issue going on when I was younger and lashed out a lot. I don't know why. Maybe home life. But anyway, Green Day was a band that was always very influential on me, and I always felt like I kind of escape into their music, and not for any particular reason at all, because I can't really truly relate to the song, especially at that point in my life. But When I Come Around was a song that when it came on, I could just kind of lose myself, and it brings me back to those times when I was just struggling to find my way and to just stay grounded, and I could always just turn that song on and kind of chill out again.
So you're dating yourself here a little bit. How old are you now? We kind of forgot to mention this earlier in the podcast.
I'm not that old. I'm 26. I'll be 27 this summer.
Because you said Green Day was grade school, and I'm thinking for me, I don't think I was in grade school when Green Day was when that track was popular. So tell me how you decompress.
Ooh, well, how do I decompress? Gosh, I'm a pretty active guy. You know that we go surfing together, we hike and whatnot. But I'm also fairly introverted, even though I'm seemingly probably extroverted to a lot of people. So How do I decompress? I like to spend some alone time. I love to read when I get a chance. I do love Robert Frost. And so when I crack open a Robert Frost book, selected poems, and I like to crack open a good Calvin and Hobbes book once in a while and just kind of make myself laugh. That's that little bit of alone time, even if it's just an hour a day, is good for me, and I'm recharged and ready to go again.
Okay. So this might come into play with CrossFit type stuff, or it could be something completely different. But can you tell me a time in your life when you've been really at your breaking point of either mental or physical or both exhaustion? Just sometime when you were just completely broken down mentally or physically.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, my first day at the tennis academy, I will always remember this experience. Everybody's their first day. They're looking to prove themselves. Nobody knows each other. You got people from different countries, and they're working you pretty hard. They want to see what your conditioning's like. And I hadn't experienced the humidity. At least it was humid to me. I'm from the desert, but it was the humidity of the Ojai Valley. And it's a hot day in the summer, right before a fall term, and I was pushed to a point, running wind sprints on the courts and in the sand. I'd never reached this point of exhaustion before, and my vision started to blur, color started to go out, and I ended up actually passing out on the court. They had to carry me back to the dormitory, kind of shake me back awake, get some fluids in me, make sure I was stable. So that was pretty awful. I remember that was the point when I had first experienced pushing myself to my absolute limit. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're pretty much out of time here, but I'm having a good time, and I have so many other things I want to talk about. We could definitely do a part 2 follow-up at some point and get into a little bit more of the personal things I want to talk about. So normally I would wrap it up here, but I'm going to go on with a few more of these quick hits. So if anybody only has an hour-long attention span, you can go ahead and shut it off. But hopefully we've kept you entertained enough that you want to learn a little bit more about Gabe here. So these aren't quite quick hit questions, but I'll sort of ask them in that same format just to keep things moving along a little bit. Can you tell me how you mentally prepare for a really difficult workout or a competition?
I use a technique that we study in kinesiology and in sports psychology in general. It's called mental imagery, and basically the basic tenets of it is you imagine in your mind the activity that you're going to be doing, and you imagine it in great detail. Anything from what you're seeing while you're doing that activity, what you're feeling, what you're smelling, what you're hearing. If you're sweaty, if your hands are chapped, what your socks feel like, what your shoes feel like on your feet, if there's people, around you. So you have to visualize and actually live in the moment of the actual environment that you're going to be either competing or doing whatever activity that you're going to be doing. So you also have to base this on time as well. So not only do you have to visualize what you're going to be doing, but if you have a time goal, like let's say you're doing Fran, and you want to do it in 2 minutes, well, now you have to not only do the activity, but you have to pace it. Mm-hmm. So you start with your eyes closed, you put yourself in that setting, you start a stopwatch, and you go through the entire workout in your head. And as soon as that workout's over, you hit the stopwatch again and see if that was if that imagination process, that imagery process, was accurate to your time goal.
Okay.
So that's kind of a rough explanation. There's a lot more detail, and I could clarify that a lot more. But that's how I get prepared for a tough workout, is I imagine it in my mind over and over again before I do it, so that there's no surprises, if you will, when I actually get into it. Yeah.
I've heard. I think on the movie The Secret, the film that talks about the law of attraction, they discuss the same type of topic where your brain doesn't know if it's real or not, and the same neurons in your brain will fire. Let's say you're doing Fran, like those same neurons are going to be firing while you're imagining it with your eyes closed like that, as if you were actually doing it. So that's something really interesting.
That's correct, actually. I can speak to that a little bit. Regardless of, there has been some research that regardless of whether you're actually physically doing a movement or just imagining yourself doing it, if you're just imagining, your brain is still sending small action potentials down your nerves to those muscles. And so that even though there's not enough to fire those muscles to actually perform the movement, there is some muscle memory going on in lay terms of actually doing the movement.
Where does your motivation come from for training hard? And we haven't really mentioned this on here. We talked about you as a young athlete and as a coach now, but you're still a really good athlete, and you do have a pretty chiseled physique, if I do say so myself. So obviously you train hard. So where does that motivation come to keep on it, stay hard, push hard, and get the results that you have right now?
Well, there's a couple things. I'll always be a competitor. That's been ingrained in me since I was younger. Mm-hmm. And to me, second best isn't okay with me. It's okay if I finish behind somebody else because they beat me, mm-hmm. but it's not okay with me to finish behind somebody else if I beat myself.
Right.
And so my goal is to always go out with every single training session and to put as much as I can into that training session, whether it's as many reps as I can do, as fast as I can do them, or if I'm going for quality of movement. No matter what, I'm always going for top-notch performance, and that's what really drives me.
So it's just more of an internal motivation. That can you pinpoint any external factors that might contribute to the internal motivation at all? Or is it just the fact that you just want to do it for yourself? Sure,
absolutely. I mean, there is the external motivating factors. There are friends around you like yourself in the gym, that you see pushing hard and improving themselves, and that's kind of contagious. Mm-hmm. I think you'll find that same sentiment around the CrossFit community and around different sports communities in general. Is that it's contagious when your people around you are improving and doing well. You want to be a part of that, and you want to improve yourself. So that's an external force that's definitely something that contributes to my drive. But mm-hmm. Having a chiseled physique, like you said, is always nice too. And I want to keep that nice. I know my girlfriend appreciates that.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. So keep that in check.
Gotcha. So in your training throughout all the years, what has been one of the most difficult things for you to learn, whether it be a skill or a strength movement or anything like that? And how did you overcome that and actually finally learn it?
Oh, wow. Okay. So something that I'm still struggling with is the handstand, holding a strict handstand. It's difficult for me because I've always been limited by shoulder mobility. And just being an overhead athlete my whole life with baseball and tennis, I've just developed bone structure and musculature that's been it's not helped me out for holding a handstand. So that's been a frustrating adventure for me. So to answer your question, the handstand is probably my biggest struggle.
So what have you done to overcome that or learn it? I mean, I know you have it pretty dialed by now.
It's fairly dialed. One of the things that I've really worked on with our head coach at the gym, Chad, is just different drills. Holding handstands up against the wall, being able to hold the hollow position effectively inverted, using my fingers to grip the ground and use them as lever points as opposed to relying on my palms to keep me supported. So
basically practice is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying, practice.
That's
practice,
how you've
practice.
learned it.
That's how you learn.
Got it. Okay, so let's see. Going through my notes here. Again, I want to touch on a few different things. Oh, okay. I saw you post a clip on Instagram. You were on an endo board and you were juggling. When the hell did you learn how to juggle? And are there any other hidden talents that we don't know about?
Oh, so maybe some that I can mention on air, maybe not.
This is uncensored. You can say whatever you want.
No, I learned to juggle when I was a kid. I used to actually one of the mental releases I had in tennis was just to grab, in a can of tennis balls, there's 3 balls.
Yep.
And so once in a while I would pop open a can and just juggle. I learned how to juggle 2 at a time with one hand and then slowly integrated one more. And I could juggle 3 to 4 things at a time, but that's how I learned. And exploring new places in my fitness, balance is one thing that I've always kind of struggled with. whether it be snowboarding or recent endeavors like walking a slack line. So I made a makeshift Indo board out of my skim board and decided, hey, I'm going to start practicing this, and hey, why not throw juggling in there too?
Very cool. Let's see. So we're going to wrap it up, but before I do that, go ahead and plug your Bodyweight Ninja course that's going on at CrossFit Long Beach. Tell us a little bit about that. Is that only for members of the gym, or can other people outside the gym join as well?
No, definitely other people outside the gym can definitely join.
Okay, cool. So yeah, tell us about that, and go ahead and plug that, and then we'll get your Instagram and your other plugs in there as well before we wrap it up.
Awesome. So Bodyweight Ninjas is a course that I have programmed, and I will be coaching solo. It is a calisthenics and gymnastics biased course. So it is a program through the gym that is designed to implement bodyweight movements to improve the internal and external awareness of our athletes' bodies in space relation to their environment around them. Integrates calisthenics and gymnastics, like I said, but those being the foundation of the course helps them to improve their movement across the board with CrossFit with their Olympic and powerlifting movements.
Cool. So how do people learn more about that or sign up for it?
So they're going to want to go to CrossFitLongBeach.com, and we have a schedule page. And actually, you know what? Probably what's better to do is just to look us up on Facebook. We have a group page. Just go to CFLB Bodyweight Ninjas, and that is our group page. Again, CFLB Bodyweight Ninjas, and just request to join the page, and you'll see notifications from me about upcoming events, upcoming classes, and you can sign up via a link I have on that page.
Awesome. When does it start?
That starts on April 2nd. It runs through April 27th, I believe. It's every Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. and Sunday morning at 11 a.m.
All right. Well, hopefully this podcast is released by then. I'm recording this one before I record some of the other early ones that'll be launched. But thank you for that, and definitely go check that out on Facebook if you guys are interested in that. So go ahead and tell us where we can learn more about you and find you online if we want to get in touch.
Yeah, a little bit more about me. My bio is posted on CrossFitLongBeach.com under our coaches section. And my Instagram, I'm always posting stuff from my lifestyle, whether it's fitness, health adventure stuff, hiking with you, Fat, surfing, you name it, nutrition. It's all on my Instagram. It's Going Shirtless.
All right. Well, there you have it. Follow at Going Shirtless on Instagram. And, of course, you can follow me at FatTonyBMX and check out all my other web stuff at the same thing. So thanks for joining us, Gabe, and we'll see you guys next time.
Right on. Thanks a lot.